Thembisa Mshaka is an award-winning creative. She's written campaigns for all of your favorite artists, and her voiceover work is world-renowned. And she's one of us. She lives right here in Bedford-Stuyvesant. She's a big deal. She's a leader in her industry, and who better to talk to about the role of the creative during the pandemic, and also, because she has two beautiful children, how are parents with children adjusting to working from home while their children are being schooled from home? It's a lot. But if there is someone who's found a strategy that works, Thembisa's found it. So enjoy Thembisa Mshaka. So for the people that are watching, for those that don't know who you are, tell the people who you are, and then we'll get started.
So my name is Thembisa Mshaka. I am right here in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn. And I have lived in Brooklyn since 2002. I am originally from the West Coast, from Los Angeles, California, and began my career in the San Francisco, Oakland Bay Area. So I am a transplant, but I also very much feel a kinship to Brooklyn because it's the closest thing that I could find on the East Coast to Oakland. And that's why I have stayed. I am, first and foremost, in terms of my profession, a writer. And from there, segued into becoming a voice actor, a producer, a filmmaker. And what I've done in terms of writing has really been broad, from advertising to creative campaigns, entire projects for all kinds of different categories. Most people know me as a music industry campaign writer. The first campaign that I wrote was for Sony Music. That was the Miseducation of Lauryn Hill. And while I was at Sony, I wrote over 100 different music campaigns for many of the Black music favorites that people know, whether it's Maxwell, Beyonce, Will Smith, Wu-Tang Clan, Jill Scott, 50 Cent, Jagged Edge, Wyclef Jean, just a very, very long and esteemed list that I'm very honored to have been able to contribute to those artists' careers. From that, segued into doing it for other products, whether it was, and typically as a freelancer for my own company, which is now called Mshaka Media. So I have done campaigns for everything from Rockaware Clothing in the 90s. I did their very first campaign, to Johnny Walker, like working in the spirit space, and Alizé. People remember Alizé.
Shout out to Alizé.
And then more recently, working on media and programming, so doing campaign work for networks as well. So, and my most recent role as a creative director is on a swing jazz album by a wonderful composer and band leader named Lenora Zenzele Helm, who has an orchestra called Tribe Jazz Orchestra. Their album is called For the Love of Big Band. It just came out on March 9th, I believe. And the great thing about this project is that it has 7 women players in it. So what she has declared is that she's kicking down doors for women in jazz, and, band leaders and women in the orchestra are rare. And so, she wanted to move beyond women being tokenized in the jazz space when it came to orchestras. And so she's got a great swing album that actually has topped the charts and is doing really well right now. So I work in a number of spaces, but somehow music always comes calling. And because I'm a music head, that's just kind of what I jump to answer to and to get involved in. And then many people may remember me as the author of Put Your Dreams First, Handle Your Entertainment Business, which is currently the most comprehensive guide on the entertainment industry through the lens of business women in the marketplace.
Before we even get started, I just want to make sure that you and your family and everybody is safe, like everything's good. I know that, from day to day, this thing changes, and,
yes,
we have good days and then we have bad days. And, like many people watching, there's been bad days.
God and creatives are getting everyone through this right now. And that really creatives, artists, they really should be recognized and compensated accordingly. And it's a real shame that those same people whose content and whose imagination and whose brilliance are getting the rest of the world through this are falling through the cracks and are, afterthoughts when it comes to legislation and, emergency relief.
Right.
We're not just talking about the gig economy of people who are virtual assistants or, people who freelance.
Mm-hmm.
It's specifically with creatives, like even SAG-AFTRA. I mean, I'm a working actor, right? So SAG-AFTRA had to thug on Congress to be like, hey, don't forget about actors, and people in the artistic community. Like, not everyone is making Denzel money. Those of us who need to make a living on a regular basis, and need to have jobs add up to an income. Because we're not getting 6 million, 10 million, 20 million a project.
Right. I can't do one project
that's not the lion's share of us. Like, most of us make under 100,000, but that's if we have a great year.
Right.
So.
Right. You don't understand it probably, but from the time I published my first book, you were someone that was always like a beacon, like somebody that was right ahead of the work that I was doing, because your name always would come up with Regina Brooks.
Yeah.
Your name, she told me to go to your book signing at Greenlight and meet you. You probably don't remember that. That was like in 2009.
I remember.
Yeah.
Come on now.
So
listen, I have some really dedicated male readers, and y'all stand out because this book was primarily focused on women. And so, when I see men who are like, oh, this book gave me more than the other, autobiographies from people in the record business, or, I haven't seen a book that was organized this way or that was this comprehensive. Like, I remember
that was a very educational book to me, because I'm not going to lie to you. I didn't realize until your book the impact of women in that field, in the industry. I swear to God.
They don't talk about us.
Front like I wasn't chauvinist. I'm not even going to front like I wasn't like MC Lyte, Queen Latifah, and who, right? Like, I'm telling you. So your book was kind of like one of those things that pushed me to kind of check myself in terms of my views on women and gender and all of those.
Right. And this idea of erasure and credit not being given, or, history being rewritten by men, and thus leaving out really critical, pieces of the puzzle who just happen to be women.
Right.
So,
well, let's talk about that, because the pivot is kind of the focus of all of these conversations I've been having. People across spaces, they understand that there has to be an adjustment. There needs to be a pivot, right? So in your business model, with the work that you do, have you begun to have that conversation with yourself in terms of what that pivot is going to look like on the other side? Are you making plans?
Right now, not even
right
the other
now.
side.
Right. Okay. Right.
Right now, the first thing that I had to get clear about was that in my voiceover life, I need a home setup here, a mini studio, so that I can continue to work as an actor. The other thing was realizing that I'm blessed in that as a writer, I've always been somebody who worked digitally or through email or through, not necessarily needing to be physically present to get my work done.
Right.
So that hasn't interrupted too much. I haven't had to make that big a transition because my work is not contingent upon a live audience. It goes to market. And so in that sense it is, but in the short term, in terms of creating, conceiving, rewriting, fine-tuning, developing.
It could be done in a whole.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's been a blessing. What has been challenging is that I'm having to be flexible with my clients, because as their personal economies have either flatlined or taken a dip or become uncertain, that means that they can't necessarily stay on the same retainer structures or pay me in the same way that they had before. And so it becomes a question of being flexible and figuring out, well, how am I going to be on that other side as a company that says, I understand what you're going through and let's make a different arrangement for this time period. So, there is that. But mainly I'm grateful for things like residual income as an actor on commercials that I've done. So, those payments are always on time, but especially now.
Right.
And then in terms of like my family life, I have 2 children. So one is 20. He's a college student. The other is 8 and she's in 3rd grade. So my son actually was in the CUNY system. So they began e-learning in late February. Mm-hmm. So he's been home and out in the street less often since then. And then we went under direct quarantine around March 12th.
Right.
And then New York officially shut down, I believe, on the 22nd. Mm-hmm. So then once my daughter was out of school, we were all here. So they love that we have dinner all at the same time because that's not something that was always happening every night. Mm-hmm. It's been very hard for my son because he's a skateboarder.
Mm-hmm. I see him in the hood sometimes skating. Well, before.
Yeah, so he commutes on his board. So he's used to getting in 4 or 5 hours a day of skating, and it's his meditation. So that's been a little challenging for him. So he's literally been doing his e-learning on our fire escape because he's like, I just have to be outside. Like, I don't know I can't,
Right.
So, but the 2 of them don't get a lot of time together as it is. So it's really golden time for them to be together, and they don't really get on each other's nerves so much because the gap is vast. So it's kind of like they're just happy to be in each other's presence, and they have things that they can do that they share. They love Minecraft, and they have certain things that they can both watch without my daughter getting scared. And so, it works out. But for me, it's all of the things that I would normally do on a work from home schedule, plus homeschooling the 3rd grader, making sure the college student is sort of on task. Because we don't even know what week it is, what day it is. And so it's like, okay, what's due and when? And did you? Yeah. Because he is graduating in May. And so it's like, let's make sure everything is everything. Like, he's not going to have a ceremony. He's probably going to get his, degree mailed to him or whatever. But, we still got to make sure we're on point with the deadlines. So there's that. And then it's like everyone's at the house all day, every day. So we're cooking and eating constantly. So, So, I'm now a part-time fry cook, and it's like, all right, meal prep has gone from 0 to 100. I used to do it before for the nanny, but now it's like, I'm really trying to kick that up a notch so that I'm not constantly cooking. And then, my son cooks, but it's like a college kid cooking. Like, nobody wants to eat all that all the time. So, the other piece is, okay, if we're going to be eating like this, then I need to work out. So I'm back to training with my, coach and my Pilates studio. They've both gone virtual. So shout out to Robert Brace and Salim Rahman. They are doing fitness challenges with Black Girls Rock on their IG Live. So they're actually donating money. Now, look, these gentlemen, they get paid top dollar. They coach celebrities and Victoria's Secret models and ballet dancers and all of that. But they're going on and they're working on tips, through Cash App. And this is, to me, like, people who are in the athletic and fitness space are also creatives to me.
They are.
So they're, doing what they do for top dollar for way less than that, and hoping that people, throw them a $20 here or there or whatever. So, people have thrown, to me, what's unwarranted shade at DJs who are, pinning their Cash Apps. And it's like, their economy has flatlined because their whole, like, even if they had a podcast or an online show, that was the fun or the lost leader, that was not the main thing. So, now I'm happy to contribute to, my trainers because they're keeping me healthy and fit while, I eat my way through quarantine.
Mm-hmm. So you brought up something that, is important, and I've been preaching this: keeping mind active and keeping body active.
Yeah.
You know,
Crucial.
when this thing first jumped off, I think the prevailing attitude was that of a vacation, right? So the first couple of weeks, you saw people all on social media, wasting a lot of time and energy and kind of treating it like a vacation, drinking more than normal, watching more than normal television, you know, all of the excesses that come with being at home.
Downtime, so to speak.
Right. But slowly, what you're beginning to hear more is this conversation and this ideal of this is not a vacation. And what are we going to do on a day-to-day basis to keep our minds and our bodies active? So you spoke about the workout thing. I know for me, it's very important I get my runs in. It's very important that I did yoga today, which is something I'm trying to get better at.
Mm-hmm.
It's very important to do those things to keep vital. Vitality is important.
The endorphins, because you know, I feel, even though I have windows, I feel like I'm in a Vegas casino. Like,
right?
You know, I don't know what time it is. I don't know what week it is.
I've been on Zoom conferences and have said stuff like, "Yeah, because tomorrow's Thursday," and they'd be like, "No, tomorrow's Saturday." Like, right. You know, so absolutely.
Sleep patterns are off, you know, right. Schedules are off. So, yeah.
You know, but so I kind of want to hear, you know, you spoke somewhat about what you do on a day-to-day thing for your physical well-being, but speak to us about what do you do on a day-to-day for your mental well-being, and also being a woman of faith. How does that play into this new paradigm of being in the house?
Well, it certainly, for me, has opened up this need to meditate more.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that I took advantage of was the Peloton 90-day free trial. Mm-hmm. And they have yoga classes on there. They have strength classes, but they also have really great meditation classes. A lot of people use apps, but, you know, I kind of feel like if I'm dealing with a phone, then I'm not really tuning out to
right.
And all that, you know.
Got you.
So, so with Peloton, even though I have to use my computer, I can still close my eyes and follow the meditation. You know, I don't know. There's just a different thing for me with the phone and having to use it for that. So it's not true for everyone, but for me, it's like a barrier. So, so there's that. And then obviously more focused, you know, prayer, and just really heavily leaning into, like, I literally have a prayer list for all things COVID-19 related, all people COVID-19 related in my own life, and who I might see on social who are friends of friends or relatives of friends who are asking for prayers. And so I just, you know, at the end of all my prayers, I just run down this list, you know, and ask for coverage, protection, recovery, vitality, strength, you know, all those things. And it helps me. I definitely am leaning heavily on faith in this time, like real clear that is a very important tool during this time for me, you know. So absolutely. I definitely miss, like, the thing about the illusion of downtime is like, oh, I could be going to my, you know, prayer services. Nope. So,
right.
You know, that is definitely a missing. And I understand, you know, from a habitual place why people are continuing to convene. But from a logical place, it's like, you guys got to get clear that God and science are not at odds with each other. And the reality is, you can be in your spiritual space and not gather. And that's actually better, because the science is working against us right now.
Thanks.
And every article that I see about, you know, people continuing to have church Easter, it was crazy how many pastors across the country were still having gatherings of over 1,000 people for Easter, thinking that there was some, I don't know what, some blanket, the blood, the covering. I'm not a Christian. I don't understand. Right. Like, that is not going to stop the coronavirus from spreading within your congregation. Right. People doing choir rehearsals and coming out positive, people dying from gathering at baby showers and bachelorettes. I mean, it's like, do you care about these people? why are you putting them at risk? They're the people in your own community. Why would you do that? Right. So why would you even roll the dice or take that risk?
Doesn't make sense. My mother's church home, so far, they have 11 COVID deaths.
Oof.
11. And the bulk of it stems from one event that they had. So that's
still rippling, right? It's like people are newly coming up infected and newly dying from it, right?
So it makes no sense. Last question. And I love your shirt. Creatives hustle hard.
Oh yeah. So this is also this is Black folks out in Columbus, Ohio. I'll have to get you the information.
Yeah, give me the info.
They're called Creative Control. It just came to me.
Nice. Well, I got a thing for Ohio. I went out there a couple of years for work. I used to cover the Cincinnati Music Festival, right? Mm-hmm. So I go out there and I cover it. I did it for 2 years in 18 and 19. I really like Cincinnati. I like Ohio. Like
Columbus is great. I had a wonderful time out there.
So my question is, speak real quickly about the new role of the creative. So like you spoke about the DJs. There's been some amazing things happening in the digital space from creatives, right? A great example is that Primo RZA battle, which
just a battle concept, bringing it to this IG Live, right?
It's sort of like, as a son of hip hop, this was like one of the biggest things that you could present to me, because like live, and I'm from Brooklyn. I've been to sound clashes. I know what a sound clash is.
Right.
I'm saying, and this was like a sound clash, but it was therapeutic almost to even rant about it. Who's going to win, Primo or RZA? You know what I'm saying? To even have that kind of intercourse, conversationally with people. So what's the new role? Like what's the new role of the creative in this paradigm where you can't go out, you're not going to parties, even when they open up if they tell you, look, May 1st, quarantine's over. Are you going to a party May 2nd?
Nah.
You're not doing it. You know what I'm saying? So let's speak quickly about that. What's the new role?
So I just one thing I'll say is that it's not a new role. It's the same role that we've always occupied. The only things that change are the delivery systems and the approach. Right. So the formula is the same. We do what we do. We take our inspiration, we make something, and it becomes a baby that we then develop and birth, and then we present that to the world, and then we wait for it to be received and to have whatever that effect is going to be. So with these battles, like you said, the sound clashes are already sort of the underlying historical thing that we do, right? That came into this, and now we're just using these social platforms to sound clash, but the competition doesn't have that same like negative, gritty edge because we're all in this collective quarantine. So except for Storch and Manny Fresh, it kind of did get a little bit like,
tacky, like
shady and catty, right?
Catty.
Toward the end. Dudes be doing that stuff too. It's not just us who be like, right? So for the most part, these battles that have been between Swizz and Timbaland and RZA and Premier, even though there's that competition, it's the undercurrent is out of respect because we know that you have enough dopeness to even do a battle with me. And so it's not the same level of like aggressive sparring, and it's beautiful. It's like, it takes you back. You get the nostalgia of how it felt when you were dancing to that or who you were with when that record came out.
Right.
And then, you see the interaction between them, and then you watch the threads, and then you see your friends in the threads and you shout them out. And it reminds me of the party lines that radio stations used to do.
Right.
Where you would call into the party line and you didn't know everybody, but you all just kind of like bonded over the music, right? So for me, culture and creativity have always created the wiring for the social network. And hip hop, it has always been a social network. Before everybody had cell phones, when most people had pagers, it was music and radio and concerts and magazines that were transmitting, what is the buzz, right? So the role is the same. It's just the delivery systems have changed. And what we have to do is put systems in place to best recreate that live experience and that connection. Mm-hmm. So if that means taking up your production value a level because you're doing it from home, then that's something to take on. For myself, I do a live event every year because I don't have the bandwidth to do anything on a regular basis, called Lip Game Live, which is a women's entrepreneurial networking event that combines beauty and business. So I do them typically in October or November, so TBD for 2020. But what I've done in response to COVID-19 is create a virtual Lip Game Live event with a life coach and a wellness coach by the name of Rachel LeBlanc, a friend of mine who made the transition from working in hip hop to becoming a Reiki master and a certified life coach. So a lot of us are getting on Zoom and kikiing and drinking and talking and venting, but I wanted there to be professional help on my call because that's really the space that I always come from, is like, how can we elevate and support women as they go through whatever it is career-wise? And this is no different. So Lip Game Live is a virtual Zoom event every Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern, and we're on for an hour, and people come on and they are in a safe space to just talk about what's happening for them, whether that's good news or dealing with the grief, which really has a different tenor because you can't fully go through the grief rituals that you would if your loved one dies of COVID-19. Right. There is no saying goodbye. There is no holding the hand at the hospital. There is no funeral. There is no, repast. So all those rituals that help us to cope with the loss have been taken from us, which adds to the grief. So people talk about that. But the one thing that I request is that they bring fierce lip game. And so then we get to talk a little bit about makeup. And then, if they want to have a drink while we're on, then that's fine too. So it becomes a space that allows for women to really connect, but to do it in a healthy context if they do have an issue, whether that's with anxiety or multitasking or, self-care. So that event happens at 6 every Friday on Zoom, and we're going to do it every week until we don't need to do it anymore, at least in the context of COVID. So
dope. It's been a great conversation. We could talk for hours just about everything.
Yes, I love talking with you, Marlon, and I so appreciate that you thought about me for this initiative that our Time Press and Facebook have connected on. So I really appreciate being a part of it because Brooklyn has really sustained me as a creative and just as a member of community. I would have never thought myself to be that person who would wind up living in New York for 20 years, but it's only because of Brooklyn that I'm still here. So I'm grateful. So thank you so much.
I made a nickname for you. Want to hear it?
Wait a minute. I feel like I already know it. Was that one where you gave me a hashtag?
I gave you a hashtag. That was a gift. The hashtag was a gift.
And I received that. It was dope.
The nickname is Sister T from the West SIDE. You know what I'm saying? Sister T from the West SIDE.
Yes, thank you. Oh my gosh, I love it. I'm totally that because I definitely feel like California is my home, but Brooklyn is where I reside, and it's where my community impact has that root, and so I'm thankful. So. That's cool. I appreciate being able to be a part of this, and I send my love and prayers for strength and just, the ability to power through this in a way that still allows us to be gentle with ourselves, because it is a pandemic. It's not a snow day. And if you don't feel like you can be productive every day, or if you do have to take a week off, right, you would normally take a vacation anyway, wouldn't you? So sometimes if it means taking a week off to just not be on all these calls, then so be it. Do what you have to do to take care of yourself during this time. So I send everyone my best wishes in the face of all of this tragedy.
Mm-hmm.